This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Now, Sports Bash Saturday. Here's Josh Hennig.
Sports Bash Saturday in the middle of the afternoon here on 97.3 ESPN as we got to listen to a little Ohio State, Illinois. Ohio State. I didn't know they were that good. Now I do. We got a lot of football to get to. Of course, the NFL playoffs divisional round begins today at 4 p.m. It's the coverage right here on 97.3 ESPN to preview all the games, the whole slate. My man, Reed Fowler, will join us coming up at 3 p.m. DraftKings NFL Insider. We'll get with him on everything going on with the playoffs this weekend. 2 games today, 2 games tomorrow. A lot of action to get to on 97.3 ESPN. Some Eagles news also we need to get to that just came down the wire in the last hour. And, of course, your texts all show long. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973 is the text board. I'll get to some Sixers and Flyers throughout the afternoon as well. And if any news pops off, we'll also let you know about that here on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget our extensive Sixers and Flyers coverage over at 97.3ESPN.com. Go over there right now, and you will find out more details on Sean Couturier. He is expected to miss a minimum of 2 weeks. So go in the details about why. Kevin Durso has that information for you right now on 97.3ESPN.com and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. But the Eagles news that came down within the last hour, my goodness. I feel like how do I say this? I don't want to say I feel vindicated, but I feel justified. I feel like we finally have something that justifies my complaints about the Eagles more so than we had before over the last several weeks. A report came out today from Jeff McLean of the Philadelphia Inquirer that there was a disconnect between Peterson and Carson Wentz even before Wentz was benched. Here is part of the quote from the article. Listen to this. Quote, Carson Wentz, the type A personality, could be credited just as much for his past success. Many top quarterbacks share that same trait, but the 28-year-old had increasingly rebuffed advice, defied criticism, and clashed with former coach Doug Peterson last season, according to Eagles sources. Furthermore, Carson Wentz, according to the story, would occasionally kill whatever play Doug Peterson would call for no other reason than his own personal distaste, according to sources tell Jeff McLean. It became a, quote, pissing match between the two of them, unquote. Was I not on 97.3 ESPN on game night and on Sports Bash Saturday in September, in October, November? I kept asking, why is Carson Wentz going kill before every single play? Remember, I kept asking everybody out there, why doesn't anyone ask Wentz what is going on with the play calling? And now we know. The article also goes on to say, Carson Wentz's resistance to hard instruction made him lose faith from coaches, and unwillingness to accept blame for his mistakes hurt the locker room. Quote, Wentz doesn't understand that he lost games for us, a veteran player has said off the record, unquote. Quote, as well, Wentz will never admit that he is the reason why we lost games, and that's a problem because he can't get it corrected. Around the bye week, one Eagles offensive lineman actually went above Doug Peterson to management and asked the organization if they could switch to Jalen Hurts. So for everybody out there who wants to defend Wentz, For everybody out there who was on the Wentz wagon, now you understand why I've been telling you all for months. This is an egomaniac. Do you understand now that this quarterback, Carson Wentz, was more at fault for the 4-11-1 season than the head coach? You fired the head coach, but you could argue the cancer is still here. There is no way I would want Carson Wentz to continue to be my quarterback if I was the owner and general manager. This is a guy who would purposely kill out of plays. Kill. We heard that a million times during the Carson Wentz era so far, right? He would get out of a play just because he has a personal distaste. Remember I told you all, when is Wentz and Peterson talking to each other when he goes sidelines? Never. The report says that Wentz had a disdain for a coaching staff. He doesn't want to admit that he's the reason why they lost games. And that players were frustrated to the point where they wanted him out of the starting lineup. Wow. So for every person who wants to blame Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson, here's your problem with the Eagles' 4-11-1 season. Mr. Type A personality Wentz, which whatever that means at this point. I mean, everyone wants to use that term. I've even used that term this week already. Carson Wentz, according to this report, says, quote, Carson Wentz treated it like whoever was coaching him was working for him, unquote. So this is a 28-year-old quarterback who thinks he knows everything, won't admit that he makes mistakes and that he's part of the problem. He would audible out of plays out of spite for the head coach and play caller. He rebuffed advice, defied criticism, and clashed with Doug Peterson. But I'm supposed to believe that at any point that Carson Wentz should be the Eagles quarterback moving forward. No, I ain't buying it. I am not taking for 1 minute, overlooking the fact that you are still stuck here. Doug Peterson may be gone, and some of you may be unhappy with Howie Roseman. But your quarterback, Carson Wentz, is a huge problem right now. 609-403-0973 is the text board here on 97.3 ESPN. If Carson Wentz is so unhappy, if Carson Wentz is so defiant, rebuffing advice, spiteful, whatever word you want to use from that article, if he's all those things, if I'm the Eagles, I just go to Wentz and say, you know, Carson, you seem like you don't want to be here. Where do you want to go? All you got to do is renegotiate this contract, and we'll send you anywhere you want. You want to go to Indianapolis? You want to go to Minnesota? You want to go to wherever? I know Kirk Cousins is in Minnesota, but I'm just throwing Minnesota out there because it's the closest state to North Dakota, okay? Where do you want to go, Carson? Tell us. We'll send you there. Because obviously, you wouldn't listen to your good friend Press Taylor. You wouldn't listen to the head coach who was part of the reason why you're even here. Remember, it was Doug Peterson, Howie Roseman, and Jeffrey Lurie who flew out to North Dakota to talk to this young man before he was drafted, and they were sold on him being drafted. There are many people who believed that the Eagles liked Wentz over Goff in the first place. So it was a win-win that Goff went to the Rams and that Wentz, quote-unquote, fell to the second pick and went to the Eagles. So you wouldn't listen to Press Taylor. You're not listening to Doug Peterson. You won't take advice. You won't admit there's anything wrong. And listen, maybe there is more to this story than we even know. Maybe the issues go deeper. Maybe there's something else because, remember, no reporters in the NovaCare Center for the whole year, so we don't know what's been going on in the locker room, after practices, after games. Maybe we would have known about some of this stuff sooner. But I told you all from the beginning, if that's the kind of quarterback that Carson Wentz has become, I want no part of it. Carson Wentz will not admit that he is part of the problem. You stare down receivers. You refuse to go through your options. You kill out of a play call out of spite? What is wrong with you? Carson Wentz wants to win. Not according to this. What's more important, Carson? Being right or winning the football game? Tom Brady would never do this. Peyton Manning would never do this. Kirk Cousins would never do this. Who is a quarterback in the NFL who would do this? Not named Carson Wentz. Ben Roethlisberger told the Steelers, I want Randy Fichtner to be the next offensive coordinator because I like him. He's the quarterback coach. I don't see Ben Roethlisberger optioning out of every single play when they called it for the last few years. I'm not seeing Ben Roethlisberger ignoring talking to his head coach. I'm not seeing Ben Roethlisberger have all these stories about these things, about him coming out to the media. But fine, let's fire the head coach. Let's blame Howie Roseman. I feel like there's not a coincidence that Doug Peterson and Howie Roseman were both in sync when they drafted Jalen Hurts. And if this is how Carson Wentz acts when they draft a young quarterback, I'm out. I am out on the Carson Wentz deal. Text board is open at 609-403-0973. Still to come, Reed Fowler from DraftKings will join us to preview the full NFL slate starting at 4 p.m. All the coverage right here on 97.3 ESPN. 609-403-0973. Andrew chimes in and says, after that report, I say move on from Carson Wentz. See what the young Jalen Hurts can do for a full season under center. Andrew, I couldn't agree with you anymore. You drafted Hurts in the second round for a reason. Let's see what he can do. In fact, if I'm the Eagles, after this report came out, you know what I do? I get back on the phone and I call Lincoln Riley again. And I say, how much money and what is it going to take for you to leave Oklahoma? Please, let me know. You coach Jalen Hurts. You want to coach him again? Come on down. Remember, this is the same organization whose owner referred to Carson Wentz as an asset and then later a very talented quarterback. He did not, I repeat, he did not call him the franchise quarterback. I don't think that's a coincidence. Josh Hennick here. Special edition of Sports Bash Saturday here on 97.3 ESPN. More your texts coming up at 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973 here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
You go back to last year with the Cowboys, Lincoln publicly said that he was going to stay at Oklahoma. I don't think he's made, and I could be wrong, things change every second, I don't think he's made any public statement in the last 24 hours, either staying or leaving Oklahoma, which is interesting to me. Which means to me maybe the door is still open because he has not publicly said anything. So
that was Jeff Mosher on the Sports Bash earlier this week. about the whole Lincoln Riley stuff. I'm playing that on purpose. I'm stirring the pot. Listen, if Carson Wentz is this individual that this report says he is, that he won't admit when he's wrong, that he's defiant against advice and criticism, that he would kill out of plays from Doug Peterson just out of spite, if that's the kind of person that Carson Wentz is, then you need to go to Jalen Hurts. And maybe there's more to this Lincoln Riley stuff than we all heard. Maybe this whole Lincoln Riley, Jalen Hurts reunion maybe is coming. And you know what? I don't know about you, but you tell me, Eagle fans, 609-403-0973. Because I've already gotten a couple people already saying, I'm out on Wentz after that report. Go to Hurts. Well, if we get a Jalen Hurts, Lincoln Riley reunion in Philadelphia, how do you feel about that? 609-403-0973 to get on the conversation. Jim in Ventnor says, Josh, I was on the quarterback fence going into next year. But after hearing this, Jalen Hurts is the future going forward. Carson Wentz is a prima donna. You're right, Jim. He absolutely is. I've been saying it for months. Ego. Carson Wentz, born-again Christian, blah, blah, blah. But Wentz himself is ignoring a specific thing, a passage in the Bible. Pride comes before a fall. Wentz is falling, and he doesn't see it. He's too blind. His pride is blinding him to the fact that he was arguably, if not the worst, one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL this year. And it's all his fault because he won't even admit that he was wrong. Again, I'll reread the one quote from the article here. Carson Wentz's resistance to hard instruction made him lose faith from the coaches, and an unwillingness to accept blame for his mistakes hurt him in the locker room. A veteran player said, quote, Carson Wentz doesn't understand that he lost games for us. He will never admit that, and that's a problem because he can't get it corrected, unquote. I have no interest in that quarterback starting for my franchise. I'll tell you that much. Prima donna, egotistical, proud. Everyone makes mistakes. And maybe there's more validity to why Lincoln Riley has not denied this potential link between him and the Eagles. Why he has not come out and said, I'm staying in Oklahoma. Maybe there is something to all this stuff. Maybe the Eagles say, you know what? We're going to latch our train now to Jalen Hurts because of how Carson Wentz is, and we're going to bring in Lincoln Riley to advance that agenda. Keep that in mind. Jeff Mosher was the first report about the Lincoln Riley connection to the Eagles. Sports Bash Saturday here on 97.3 ESPN being brought to you by New Jersey Lottery. You need to match just one number, 1 to 15, to win Cash Pop from the New Jersey Lottery. The more numbers you play, the better your odds of winning. So pop in and play because anything can happen in Jersey. Coming up on the other side, Reed Fowler will get into the NFL slate with us, go through the entire rundown of what we can expect from the games. 2 games today, 2 games tomorrow. And, of course, next hour, more of your text messages at 609-403-0973 here on 97.3 ESPN. I got to ask Reed Fowler coming up next. How does, the one game I just can't get 100% read on. And you guys know me. I usually will take a side. I'm very firm in my picks. Win or lose, I'm firm in my picks. I don't track all my picks and tell you which ones I got right and which ones I got wrong just for the fun of it. No, I want to say, all right, why are we looking at this? And I don't feel great about this Ravens-Bills game. I am completely conflicted. I feel better about the over-under numbers on the game than I do about the actual winner of the game. So we'll ask Reed Fowler about all 4 playoff games coming up next here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you, leading you up to coverage of the NFL playoffs divisional round at 4 p.m. right here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, don't forget to check out all the latest news. Sean Couturier will miss the next 2 weeks. The Philadelphia Flyers are 2-0, but they will be without one of their best players for 2 weeks. Find out more details about that Kevin Durso has it right now on 97.3 ESPN.com and 97.3 ESPN Real Life. Josh Hennig coming back next with Reed Fowler.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Now, Sports Bash Saturday. Here's Josh Hennig.
Counting you down the final hour leading up to playoff coverage right here on 97.3 ESPN. Doubleheader today, Rams versus Packers, Ravens versus Bills. Tomorrow, we have Browns versus Chiefs, Bucks versus Saints, all right here on 97.3 ESPN. Joining us right now to get all into that right now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. We'll get to more of your texts a little bit later this hour at 609-403-0973. But Reed Fowler, DraftKings NFL analyst, joins us now to get more into these games right here on 97.3 ESPN. Reed, how's it going?
Josh, thanks for having me. It's great. We were talking a little bit before we came on that this might be one of the better weekends for divisional football that we've had in some time, huh?
Absolutely. And I'm at the point where usually I'm pretty I have an idea of, whether I'm right or wrong, who I think is going to win a game. But for this weekend, there's two of these games that I'm just not 100% sure about. Before we get into the specific games, how do you feel about the way this whole weekend is lining up? Because when I was watching the games last weekend, which felt like I was in football heaven, which is like football overload, triple headers on 2 straight days, it just seemed like, wow, we got through this whole season, and now the playoffs are just totally one-upping the entire season.
Yeah, and the players that we have in them, quarterbacks especially, and Jared Goff, I think is probably the one that is sort of the ugly stepchild in it all. You got the MVP probably elect in terms of Aaron Rodgers, a potential future MVP, and Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. I mean, the list goes up. Patrick Mahomes. And so when you take a look at, and this is what the NFL wants, right? It's a quarterback-driven league, and you have probably the next handful of guys in Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Sort of the torch is being given now to these guys, with some guys like Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and Drew Brees, sort of in the sunset stage of their career. Aaron Rodgers probably not as soon as the other two guys in that last game on Sunday, but it's going to be fun.
Now let's get into some of these games specifically. You talked about Goff and Rodgers. That's the first game, of course, at 4:35 kickoff. Listen, right. I look at this game, and to me, it kind of has a similar feel to the last week. If Aaron Donald can go off, this can be the Rams' game. But if the future Hall of Fame quarterback, last week it's Russell Wilson, this week it's Aaron Rodgers, if he can get his way, I think that's the key. To me, it all comes down to Aaron Donald versus the quarterback.
Right. One Aaron, like our Aaron versus your Aaron, right? This is the matchup that we're all going to watch. And that's not to mention Jalen Ramsey, right, and Devontae Adams. This is the number one scoring defense against the number one passing and scoring offense that we have currently in the NFL. And you take a look at what the Packers have done so far this season, it's great. And with relatively, aside from Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, a skill set, a core of players that we don't necessarily rank as the highest, in this slate of games, right? The MVSs, the Robert Tunyons. They're elevated because of Aaron Rodgers. But you're right. This defense and the Rams, their ability to pressure the quarterback and how many times they have this season. You take a look at what Aaron Donald and these guys have done. They've sent a ton of pressure over this season. And that's really what Aaron Rodgers has issues with. Like we saw that against Tampa Bay, where he only put up 10 points, he and the Packers. And we know Todd Bowles on the Tampa Bay side, the defensive coordinator, draws up a lot of blitzes. And the Rams defense, this is what they do, right? They've created 90 pressures the most of any pass rushing pair in Leonard Floyd and Aaron Donald. That's going to be the one spot that I want to take a look at. And that's why I kind of lean towards Rams covering at 6.5 right now in the DK Sportsbook, but the Packers still coming out on top.
Now, before we go on to the next game, I am curious with this game as well, because we know that, for example, we know that the coaching staffs of some of these teams are out there, but you can't interview them until their playoff run is done. So you have a guy like Brandon Stanley is the defensive coordinator for the Rams. I know that he's been talked about to interview for different jobs like the Eagles and others. What do you think about him as a potential head coaching candidate? I think a lot of people don't know who he is.
Yeah, I think he's, if you cover it like we do, right, you look at Brandon Staley as someone that, shows a lot of promise. If he's able to create in his very, young tenure in this type of position as DC for the Rams, and you're seeing what he's doing currently right now, right, this is sort of the MO of the Philadelphia Eagles, is that they want someone that's defensive-minded. We know that the younger coaches, that's sort of, and it still is, right? It was last season, in the seasons before with Sean McVay, but it still is kind of the boutique way to go, is find these young coaches, the Zach Taylors out there, the Sean McVays, the Shanahans to an extent, and get them in the organization early. Or seeing with Matt LaFleur on the other side. Is that LaFleur a young coach at Green Bay? And look at what he's done. Now, granted, he had Aaron Rodgers, and it's going to help in a lot of ways. But, yeah, I think Brandon Staley and what he's been able to do so far with the Rams, he's deserved of being in consideration. Now, will he get a job? Is he more deserving of a guy like Dabble and Bieniemy? Probably not. But at the same time, he's someone that you can probably get into an organization early, build it up the same way you would build up Jalen Hurts, a young core of receivers and skill players in Philadelphia with a young coach. That could be the recipe to success for Philly.
Reed T. Fowler joining us here on the Boardwalk Hotline on Twitter at Reed T. Fowler here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, you've seen him on Good Morning Football and all over the place online as well. DraftKings NFL analyst. Reed, let's go to the next game. This is the game I am most conflicted about. Every time I think I have an idea who I think is going to win this game, the only thing I feel comfortable about is I kind of have an idea about the over-under. Aside from that, I really don't know who's going to win this game. I think Buffalo is going to win this game, but part of me wants Baltimore to win the game because I want to see Lamar versus Mahomes in the championship game. But Josh Allen has been so amazing this year, and McDermott versus Andy Reid, the former protege, the head coach. I mean, there's so many storylines. No matter who wins this game, they go against Kansas City, expected next round. What do you think about who's going to win this game?
Yeah, this one's probably, you're in the same camp as a lot of people, Josh. I mean, I'm the same way, right? These teams are so evenly matched when we take a look at strength on strength, strength against weakness from either side. Buffalo's 31st in run defense, and Baltimore over the last 2 years has been top in running efficiency and run plays per game. This is a running first offense in Baltimore, and you're going up against one of the worst run defenses. And so, yeah, that's going to slow the game down. If you like that under on the DK Sportsbook at 49.5 as it sits right now at -112, I wouldn't fault you for that, right? How is Baltimore going to win this game? They're going to win this game if they slow it down and they keep Buffalo, below what they plan to do and what they've done all season. Having said that, the better quarterback this year has been Josh Allen. He has been unbelievable in terms of the strides that he's made, and Stephon Diggs being there now has just increased his passing offense. Number 4 passing offense in the NFL, going up against the number 7 secondary in the NFL. I'm going to side with Buffalo here because when it's this close, I take it down to the quarterback play. For this season, Lamar has been great. I'd rather go in if I'm going to side with Baltimore, go to the rushing props over 100 yards rushing, over 74.5 yards rushing on the DK Sportsbook for a prop for Lamar. But I'm going to take Buffalo here -2.5. I'm going to take them to win the game just because Josh Allen and Sean McDermott are just in sync right now, and the Bills are playing at a high level.
One of the things I like actually is the first half under 24.5. Because I got the feeling that this game might be one of those things where it might take them a whole half to feel each other out. I know it's supposed to be a little sloppy weather up there. And a lot of times when you have sloppy weather, teams take some time to feel themselves out. And, I'm not buying into this whole Lamar can't play in the cold weather. He plays in Baltimore, for goodness sake. Come on. But people act like Baltimore is so much more south. I heard someone try to say on television the other day, oh, Baltimore is so much more south than Buffalo. I'm like, do you even live in the Northeast? Like, come on, get out of here. But anyway, I just feel like this is a game that, as you mentioned, the better quarterback is probably going to pull out in this game. And Josh Allen, he has 8 games this year, 300 or more passing yards. Baltimore's only had defense allowed 2 of those games where a quarterback throws for over 300 yards. The thing is, those were 2 elite, high-powered offenses. So I kind of have to wonder, is it a situation where maybe Brian Dable and Josh Allen go into halftime with maybe only 10, 13 points, and they look around and like, we kind of have an idea what we could do now, and then they just unleash fury to Stephon Diggs in the second half?
Yeah, exactly right. And again, it's similar to the first game. If Baltimore has their way on defense, and look, they blitz a ton as well. The thing about that, though, is that Josh Allen has been extremely efficient against the blitz this season, and especially as opposed to last season. He's just so much more composed in the pocket. And one thing with these, right, and it might be a 6-point tease with the next game that we're going to talk about. That's the move to go to if you're unsure on the line itself. And I know it's enticing because you're only laying about -112 on the juice for siding with Buffalo. But if you do a 6-point tease, you get that Buffalo plus 4.5. Then you're feeling a little bit better. Now you're going to have to pay more than that 112, but it allows you to feel a little bit more comfortable with a team again that can put up points in bunches. Buffalo has just been able to do it on a quick scale, and Baltimore, who knows if they can keep up on the offensive side. We saw last year what Baltimore wasn't able to do when Tennessee got up on them early. Let's hope that's not the case this week and in 5 hours when we get that game for this Saturday.
Yeah, and sometimes you just need to take your ego out of the whole situation when it comes to this.
Right.
Sometimes it's better just to get the win than J.O. try to be, I have to. No, just take the tease, get the win. You can go home and be happy. Reed Fowler joining us here on the Boardwalk on the Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. DraftKings NFL analyst. Follow him on Twitter at Reed T. Fowler. You mentioned the next game. That's tomorrow afternoon at 3:05. Browns, great story. Chiefs, they're a juggernaut. I mean, Andy Reid has this ungodly record coming off of bye weeks in the regular season and bye weeks in the postseason. The guy is borderline unbeatable. I mean, I've already thrown my bet out there. I'm taking the Chiefs and the points. I don't care because to me, Reed, I just look at Andy Reid and I say, I just can't go against this guy off a bye week. I don't care how amazing Cleveland looked last week.
Yeah, we're in lockstep on this one. It's a great story, and this is sort of where you play against the public sentiment that we all saw, right? What Juju, the whole story with what Juju said about the Browns. The Browns come out and they completely, demolish any sort of hopes and dreams that the Pittsburgh Steelers fans and team had for going deep into the playoffs after that near undefeated, well, not undefeated season, but 11 straight games of winning. And now you're going against a team in Kansas City, Cleveland that is, like you mentioned, well-rested, well-coached in his 22 seasons. Andy Reid is 18-3 ATS. I mean, it's just unbelievable what he's been able to do. And this is not even talking about division games. Since 2015, he's like 22-13 ATS in division games alone. So it's not just his ability after a bye, but how well he knows how to play within this division. I'm with you in the Chiefs. Tyreek Hill against either MJ Stewart or whoever's on the guy is going to be one of the better matchups on the slate. And Travis Kelce is playing at an elite level, and no one's going to be able to stop him. So, yeah, I'm with you on the Chiefs -10.
I also think with the Chiefs, to me, whoever they play in the next round, and no offense to the NFC, that might actually be a better football team between either Baltimore or Buffalo than whoever Kansas City faces in the Super Bowl. So if they can get to the Super Bowl and get through Buffalo or Baltimore, you could almost say that they're more prepared than any other team going into the big game.
Right, and I'd say the one team, right, that could probably stack up against them on the NFC side is Tampa Bay. Just because they're a more well-balanced team. Clearly you have experience on that side with Tom Brady, with Gronk, even with Antonio Brown to an extent, right? And that defense as well. You have a lot of guys out there that you have a good mix of veterans and young players on Tampa Bay's defense that the moment won't be too big. Green Bay's defense, while they played better than last year, they're still middle of the pack when it comes to run defense. And that's really going to, if it's Buffalo or Baltimore that they play up against, or if it's, the Saints or the Bucks that they play up against, if they beat the Rams, that's a position of strength for either team against Green Bay's defense. So, yeah, I would argue that Kansas City, if they make it, they have a really good shot at repeating.
Let's flip it over to the final game tomorrow night, 6:40 kickoff. It's the two 40-year-old quarterbacks, Brady and Breeze. This is the other game I'm conflicted on because on one hand, it's like the Saints, they made them look bad for 2 games. That defense is just running on all cylinders. But It's Brady. It's Gronk. It's the chutzpah of the playoffs. We know that Brady still has some magic in that arm. To me, this game comes down to one thing. If the Bucs offensive line can give Brady 2.5 seconds, I think the Bucs can win.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's why, for me, we're just looking at the lines right now on the DK Sportsbook. It's at +3 for Tampa Bay. They're getting the points, -113. And, man, when Brady gets points in the playoffs, you really got to hone in on and focus on, that being a part of your betting card if you're looking at it, just because of what he's been able to do in his career in the playoffs. Now, having said that, Josh, like you mentioned, the Saints defense is so elite and playing at an elite level right now, especially on the defensive line. And if Tristan Wirfs and these guys can make sure that Brady's got time, then you're right. I'm siding with the Buccaneers just because I think this is going to be a close game. And in a close game where it's probably going to be a little bit more run heavy on the Saints side, you're probably going to see a little bit more control clock on the Saints side. Make sure they lean on their defense and Alvin Kamara. Both of these teams are really slow in pace. And so with that being said, going back and forth, I will side with the better quarterback right now in Tom Brady, the better offense in terms of their skill players against the defense in Godwin and those guys in that receiving core, and then just take the points as well. But yeah, Tom Brady. And if you like that, +140 right now, money line, that's pretty good for Tom Brady. Again, getting points, you don't have to lay the juice if you want to bet that -113. Get it at +140 because earlier this week was at +125, that money line.
The other thing I'm wondering is now, so let's say Brady does win that game. You could have a potential of Brady versus Rodgers in the NFC Championship game. And then the potential of Brady versus one of the 3 young quarterbacks in the AFC. This just feels like storylines are written for you no matter what. But if Breeze wins, it changes the whole dynamic because then this is his last ride. This is Peyton Manning with the Broncos. So I feel like the winner of this game creates a whole new dynamic of storylines for the next round.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right. Again, the NFL is very, very happy right now from an organizational standpoint with these teams, right? These 8 teams in the playoffs, because there's so many different narratives that come from that. Like, too bad we didn't have John Wolford with the Rams. Like, it could have been like John Wolford taking his team all the way. Can he go up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Tom Brady's and the Drew Breeses? We have a rematch if it's Bucs against Rams with Jared Goff, right? Can he win again? Can Tom Brady have the Rams number yet again? So the storylines outside of just the games in general, the storylines are plenty. And again, I'm sure all of us are excited for what's to come in a couple hours.
And Reed, with all that being said, if you had to make your pick for who's going to play in the Super Bowl as of right now, who would that be?
Yeah, my heart says I want Buffalo Bucs. Like, I want the Bills and the Buccaneers to play, and I want Josh Allen to take down Tom Brady and the Bucs, just because Buffalo, I feel like, Josh, Buffalo deserves this. They've been through so much hardship. They deserve this, but my head says Kansas City against the Bucs right now, and then Kansas City winning this. Just offense and Andy Reid so strong. Kansas City's defense, they have to step up, but it can be mitigated by how good this offense is. So I'm going to go with the repeat of Kansas City. I know it's chalk, but it's difficult to go up against those guys.
He's Reed Fowler, DraftKings NFL analyst. You can follow him on Twitter at Reed T. Fowler for all your NFL and PGA tours. I know they're starting to wind up seasons as well. Reed, one more before I let you go. We would just talk about Brandon Stanley earlier. The news just popped off that Josh McDaniels is going to interview for the Eagles head coaching position. I can't help but not wonder, though, didn't the last time Josh McDaniels was supposed to maybe get a job, he backed out at the last second? So, I mean, I don't even know what to think of this. It's just like, oh, okay, Josh McDaniels is getting a job interview. What do I even do with that information?
Yeah, I think you don't hold your breath, right? Josh McDaniels was supposed to be the Detroit Lions head coach. And then he said, nah, it's okay. I think I'll stay here in this organization a little bit longer with the Patriots. But yeah, I mean, look, Josh McDaniels, his name is always going to be thrown around just because of what he's been able to do with Tom Brady, with the Patriots for so long. And look, he doing this right now, right, is kind of has the writing on the wall of the Patriots being in, the next 3 or 4 years in a rebuild. So the AFC East is definitely up for grabs, clearly like it was this year, and the Bills doing just that. But yeah, I mean, Josh McDaniels is, an offensive mind. And I think with that young offense, look, you've got Miles Sanders, who's still, in the prime, I think just getting into the prime of his career. Jalen Hurts shows extreme upside. Jalen Reagor, Dallas Goedert, you still have a young core of players on Philadelphia's offense, your guys' offense. And you had a lot of veterans. You had a lot of veterans, too, on that offensive line that could really make sure to anchor where this team can go. So I don't mind it, but don't hold your breath, because until that pink slip until it's signed, Josh, we don't know what Josh McDaniels.
Well, also Lincoln Riley's out there. He hasn't denied talking to the Eagles yet. So, it may be a young-looking offensive coach either way, but it's definitely going to be a wild, wild situation here in Philadelphia. A lot of playoff action this weekend. And, of course, Reed Fowler's on top of all of it, at Reed T. Fowler on Twitter. And as all guests, he appeared on the Boardwalk on the Hotline. Reed always appreciates time in the conversation. Enjoy the games this weekend.
All right, Josh. Take care.
Josh Hennick here on Sports Bash Saturday on 97.3 ESPN. Sports Bash Saturday being brought to you by East Coast Roofing, Siding, and Windows, serving all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up online at eastcoastroofing.com. The text board is open, 609-403-0973. Yes, Josh McDaniels' name has been thrown into the mix. He will interview with Jeffrey Lurie in Florida tomorrow, it looks like, according to Adam Schefter. Now, the first person looks like who reported this was Eagles beat guy Bo Wolf from The Athletic. So, but Adam Schefter is confirming what others are reporting, that the Eagles did submit a permission slip to speak to Josh McDaniels for a head coaching job. The interview is expected to occur tomorrow with Jeffrey Lurie in Florida. So, where does that leave all these names? I mean, Deuce Stanley is interviewed. Brandon Stanley, not Deuce Staley, Brandon Stanley is going to interview the Rams defensive coordinator. Todd Bowles' name is in the mix. There's a lot of names floating around out there. We'll get into all of that coming up next, as well as more of your reaction to the news about Carson Wentz, the egomaniac, right here on Sports Bash Saturday, 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here in the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Matt Blatt Kia wants to get you approved today. That's Matt Blatt Kia on the Black Horse Pike in Ag Harbor Township. I never knew that between 2 and 4 p.m. on January 16th, 2021 was going to be such a busy day of Eagles news. We got another Eagles candidate to add to the name list. Mike Garafolo of NFL Network just reported that the Eagles have requested permission to interview Chiefs offense coordinator Eric Bieniemy for their vacant head coaching job. Now, of course, when the interview will occur, who knows, because if the Chiefs do go to the Super Bowl, like a lot of people think, you can't interview him for at least 2 more weeks. So that's definitely an interesting thing to watch for. And then, of course, multiple reports are out now, multiple people confirming that you have Josh McDaniels. The Eagles didn't just submit to interview him. They are talking to him tomorrow. Josh McDaniels is speaking to Jeffrey Lurie tomorrow down in Florida. So this whole situation is heating up. And if the Rams lose today, expect the Eagles to maybe talk to Brandon Stanley on Monday. That's the Rams defensive coordinator. They've already interviewed Deuce Staley, who's already on the Eagles staff for the last 3 coaching administrations. They've interviewed him for the job. So this is heating up. This is getting juicy. And I know the Eagles, they want to talk to Todd Bowles. He's currently coaching with the Bucs. And I think that there's a lot of things to keep an eye on with this. And I can't get out of my head. I can't overlook the fact what Adam Kaplan said yesterday on the Sports Bash about the kind of staff that the Eagles are looking for from their next head coach. This was Adam Kaplan yesterday on Football at 4 on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill and Hunter Brody.
The only way a defensive head guy from the defensive side of football, and Gerard Mayo is really smart, and he was a really good football player for the Patriots. He's only been coaching less than 4 years. They would have to have a all-star staff. Like I'm told that Joe Brady, the Panthers, has a great staff he's trying to put together now. Whether he could get those coaches or not is another story. But Gerard Mayo would have to have this great quarterback developer.
All-star staff was the one thing in there. It may be a defensive guy, but you need to tell the Eagles who your offensive coach is. Let me tell you a little story about what the Eagles are looking for. According to Joe Banner, who used to run the Eagles when they were in the Andy Reid years, Joe Banner says that when they interviewed Andy Reid, part of the reason why he got the job was because Andy Reid came into the meeting having 5 candidates deep at every coaching position. So Andy Reid said, I have 5 names I want for offensive coordinator, 5 names for defensive coordinator, and so on and so forth. And that blew away the Eagles. That was a huge reason why he got the job, because Andy Reid walked in there and said, I want to bring in here the best coaching staff possible. And the reason why I tell that story is because when Adam Kaplan says the Eagles are looking for an all-star coaching staff, whoever walks into that meeting, whether it's Deuce Staley, whether it's Josh McDaniels, whether it's Rams defense coordinator Brandon Stanley, whether it's someone like Eric Bieniemy whenever he's available, or Mike Kafka, who the Eagles have been interested in, who's the current quarterback coach and passing coordinator for the Chiefs. You know that the Eagles are working off of something that they're looking for. It might be a pie in the sky. It might be something unattainable. But the Eagles are looking for a certain kind of staff, because one of the reasons why Doug Peterson is no longer here is because of his choices for coaching staff, according to Adam Kaplan.
Give Lurie credit for as much criticism as he got, and he deserved a lot of it. I did appreciate he's willing to kind of give some just an outlook on what the differences were. Clearly, they did not agree on the way the team should be built, and starting with the coaching staff. I think that is why Doug got fired. He was fired. There's no question about it.
Now, according to reports as well, one of the people that Doug Peterson wanted to bring in with his coaching staff, he wanted to bring back Corey Unlin, the former defensive backs coach, became the defensive coordinator in Detroit last year before everyone was fired in Detroit, and he wanted to promote Press Taylor to offense coordinator. And I'm telling you, if that's really what Doug Peterson said, now I have no reason to believe that anybody is reporting, no one is reporting anything specifically wrong about the Eagles right now. I think that there's a lot of sourced information out there that's common knowledge at this point, like the Corey Unlin, Press Taylor stuff. There's got to be something to all this. That Jeffrey Lurie, he wants an all-star coaching staff. Lurie said himself that he wants a coach who is great at coaching his coaches. He wants a leader of men. They want to be 5 years ahead of 5 years. They want to be forward-thinking. They want to have this great high-powered offense. He looks around the NFL and sees all these high-powered offenses. That when he heard that Doug Peterson wanted Press Taylor and Corey Unlin, maybe he was just like, I can't. You want to promote a guy who has given me no reason to believe that this offense could be any better. He's supposed to be good friends with Carson Wentz, but Carson Wentz doesn't even want to listen to him. You have a defensive coordinator you want to bring in here who had a horrible year last year in Detroit. Why don't you hire anybody else? Now, listen, maybe there was some of the fact that Doug was kind of done, and he realized that if he went to Jeffrey Lurie with those candidates, that Lurie would be like, we're gonna move on without you, Doug. So maybe it was purposeful. And Doug Peterson right now, according to reports, is going to interview for the offensive coordinator job in Seattle, which is very intriguing because that's an extreme contrast from the previous OC. According to reports, the reason why Brian Schottenheimer is no longer the offensive coordinator with the Seattle Seahawks is because his concepts of how to run an offense didn't align with the Seahawks organization anymore. Well, you bring in Doug Peterson, that's a huge difference from Brian Schottenheimer, because Doug Peterson is going to sling it. Doug Peterson's going to throw the ball. Brian Schottenheimer like to run the ball, like to pound the rock. Doug Peterson comes from that Andy Reid coaching tree. You use the pass to set up the run, the inverse of the traditional Marty ball. Marty Schottenheimer, Brian Schottenheimer, the idea of running the ball to set up the pass. So Doug Peterson's going to be fine. But we know the kind of coaches that Jeffrey Lurie and the Eagles are looking for. I'm just putting it out there. Josh McDaniels, Deuce Staley, Eric Bieniemy, Brandon Stanley. These are all guys who are going to interview for this job. Todd Bowles as well, as expected. You better walk in there with some pretty good coaching candidates is a huge part of this. And the other part of it you have to think is the quarterback situation. Listen, we are at a point right now with, after this report came out today, according to Jeff McClain, something that I have wondered for a while about Carson Wentz has been confirmed. According to reports, Doug Peterson will call a play for Carson Wentz, and Wentz would kill it for no other reason than his personal distaste, sources tell Jeff McClain. There was a pissing match, quote unquote, between Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz. That Carson Wentz had become increasingly rebuffed advice, defied criticism, and clashed with former coach Doug Peterson last season. Also, according to a source, Carson Wentz treats it like, quote, whoever's coaching him is working for him. It can't be that way, unquote. Also, the report goes on to say, Carson Wentz's resistance to hard instruction made him lose faith from coaches, and his unwillingness to accept blame for his mistakes hurt the locker room, according to reports. Also, Carson Wentz, during the bye week, Eagles offensive lineman went to management, not Doug Peterson, to management, and asked the Eagles to switch from Wentz to Hurts. An Eagles player, remaining anonymous, said about Carson Wentz, quote, Carson Wentz doesn't understand that he lost games for us. He will never admit that, and that's a problem because he can't get it corrected. That is a veteran player remaining anonymous on the Eagles. You got to wonder, where are you going with the quarterback? That's the second question. If the first question is, who's your coaching staff? The second question is, to McDaniels and the Staley and the Bieniemy and the Todd Bowles and to Brandon Stanley and whoever else is going to interview for this job. What are you doing with the quarterback? Or do you really believe you can fix Wentz? Or do you want to go with Jalen Hurts? Lincoln Riley's out there. You don't think the Eagles talking to Lincoln Riley from the coach Carson Wentz? I doubt it. He'd be coming in here to advance Jalen Hurts. Lincoln Riley took not one, not two, but three different quarterbacks transferring into his program who were solid prospects and turned them into Heisman Trophy candidates. Two of them went number one overall. Jalen Hurts went in the second round. Three NFL quarterbacks, all because of Lincoln Riley. I don't think Lincoln Riley is surely coming here to coach Carson Wentz, I should say. If I had to rank the situation, and if I was running the Eagles right now, which obviously I'm not, which is why all this craziness is going on, I would try to find a way to move on from Wentz. And I'd start from scratch from Jalen Hurts and just be like, look, we're going to go through some growing pains for a couple of years, and then we're going to build, retool, and get back to the playoffs. Now, if you look at all four of those names I just mentioned, they all bring something different to the table. Deuce Staley brings the leadership qualities that you want from a head coach. He's a leader of men. He's a guy players respect immensely. But if the Eagles are very concerned about getting a certain caliber of coach in here to coach alongside him, I don't know what Deuce's relationships are around the league when it comes to coaches. I don't know if he's presenting the Eagles the kind of coaching staff that maybe Jeffrey Lurie is looking for, the Eagles owner. You look at a guy, for example, like Todd Bowles. There are reports that Todd Bowles would bring John DeFilippo with him. We know DeFilippo got the most out of Wentz, you could argue, during his time here as the Eagles quarterback coach from 2016 to 2018. So if you go DeFilippo, I assume Todd Bowles has got some pretty good connections when it comes to defensive coaching staffs. And Bowles has been around the league for a while. He coached under Andy Reid here in Philadelphia. He's coached in multiple places at this point. I mean, he's now with Bruce Arians down in Tampa. He used to coach with the Jets. You know he's coming in with a good cast. But the question is the vision that he has for the Eagles lining up with what Jeffrey Lurie wants? Brandon Staley, top-tier young defensive coordinator. But it's a little similar to Gerard Mayo, who the Eagles have already interviewed, who works on the Patriots staff. Defensive coach. You heard Adam Kaplan say it. They got to come in there with an all-star coaching staff. They got to come in here and wow them with a coaching staff. So guys like Brandon Staley and Gerard Mayo, who according to reports, Gerard Mayo is one of the smartest linebackers to ever play in the NFL in the last 20 years. His football IQ apparently is immensely high. But if their coaching staff doesn't line up with what the owner wants, Jeffrey Lurie, what does Gerard Mayo think of the Eagles quarterback situation? I would be inclined to think that a defensive-minded coach would want to start from scratch and not deal with drama in the first year with Carson Wentz. That's just my inclination. But if Brandon Staley and Gerard Mayo can't come to the table with some big names in terms of offensive and defensive coordinator and other coaching jobs, they may not get it. And that leads us to the final two names I want to hit on real quick before we hit the break. You look at Josh McDaniels and you look at Eric Bieniemy. Two completely different situations. You have to wait another 2 weeks to talk to Eric Bieniemy. If the Chiefs go to the Super Bowl, as we all expect, you can't talk to him until the bye week before the Super Bowl. That's the rules. Can't talk to him right now. He's preparing for games. He's coaching. So are the Eagles willing to wait to talk to Eric Bieniemy? And if they do wait to talk to Eric Bieniemy, what does that look like? What is he bringing to the table? Because he's a little similar to Deuce Staley. He's a leader of men. He has presence. Everyone who has reported about him says that Eric Bieniemy is more than ready to be an NFL head coach. But what kind of staff is he bringing? Does he bring Mike Kafka with him from Kansas City? Do the Eagles turn to Bieniemy and say, how do you feel about Gerard Mayo being your defensive coordinator? We interviewed him for the head coaching job. Remember, back in 2016, the Eagles did talk to Jim Schwartz initially about the head coaching job, but then he became defensive coordinator for Doug Peterson. Could that happen again with Gerard Mayo coming to the Eagles? There might be some mixing and matching, some arranged marriages going on here. But on the flip side, Josh McDaniels, you don't have to wait to hire him. Josh McDaniels, people thought was going to get the Detroit job when Bob Quinn went there. Didn't get it. Went to Matt Patricia. People assumed it was signed, sealed, and delivered. He was going to be the new Colts head coach. He backed out of the contract, backed out of the agreement last minute. They hired Frank Reich. In fact, the reason why Bob Lamont is no longer the agent for Josh McDaniels is over the Indianapolis Colts fiasco. Bob Lamont is the agent for Howie Roseman. Is there any maybe dark hidden feelings about Josh McDaniels around the league in terms of how he handled the Detroit and Indianapolis situations, and that might hold him back from getting a fair shake with the Eagles? Or does Josh McDaniels blow away Jeffrey Lurie with a coaching staff, with all kinds of stuff, and Lurie's like, here's the keys to the kingdom in terms of the coaching staff. And maybe McDaniels brings Gerard Mayo to be his defensive coordinator. And maybe McDaniels brings along some pretty spicy and juicy offensive coaching staff with him. But what does Josh McDaniels think of Carson Wentz? What do you think about Jalen Hurts? We know that McDaniels has had success with numerous quarterbacks. Before Cam Newton fiasco this year, which they did have some success with him, he had success limited with Jacoby Brissett, with Jimmy Garoppolo, with Matt Castle, with Tom Brady. He did draft Tim Tebow for a reason in the first round. We know that McDaniels has always wanted to coach a mobile quarterback. Does he go to Jeffrey Lurie and be like, look, I don't want Carson Wentz, but I like that Jalen Hurts guy. I can get the most out of him. It's going to be very interesting to see how this whole Eagles head coaching situation plays out. Keep it tuned right here to 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN.com, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City for all your Eagles coverage. Football at 4 this Monday with Jeff Mosher on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill and Hunter Brody is going to be a very interesting must-listen, as this weekend has gotten more and more juicy when it comes to the Eagles head coaching search. Josh Hennick here on Sports Bash Saturday, leading you up to the NFL playoffs right here on 97.3 ESPN. One more segment coming up next. I'll run it back for you, my Football Friday picks from last night on game night for the playoff games this weekend. We'll get into all that next right here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. And don't forget to check out Kevin Durso's story. Sean Couturier out for 2 weeks. Flyers are 2-0, but they will be without one of their best players for 2 weeks. Get more details right now at 97.3 ESPN.com, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app.
This is Sports Bash Saturday with Josh Hennig, live from the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig wrapping up Sports Bash Saturday. Coming up next, coverage of the NFL playoffs. Of course, Packers versus Rams, Ravens versus Bills today on 97.3 ESPN. Tomorrow, we have Chiefs versus Browns, and, of course, Bucks versus Saints. Coverage begins at 2:30 here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, Billy Schweim in the locker room tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. And then we'll be back in action on Monday. Mike Gill in the Sports Bash with Hunter Birdie 2 to 6. And I'll be back on game night at 6 p.m. right here on 97.3 ESPN. 609-403-0973. Before I give you my football picks one more time, Texter chimes in at 609-403-0973. Says, I'm just curious, Josh, if Doug Peterson left Jalen Hurts in that last game against Washington and they win the game, do you think Peterson still gets hired? I'm not an Eagles fan, but I think it was a huge mistake. Well, I think it's coming out more and more that Doug Peterson's, it was less about the quarterback than it was about the fact that Peterson's coaching staff choices are what doomed him. The fact that he wanted to promote Press Taylor and bring back Corey Unlin to be defensive coordinator is what pushed him out of town, Texter. So I think that it's looking more and more like Doug Peterson and the Eagles were going to part no matter what, that it was kind of a doomed relationship in the long run for a variety of reasons. So I think that's really the bigger reason why we are. All right, football picks. Don't forget, promo code HENNIG when you sign up at FanDuel Sportsbook. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code HENNIG. 25-1 odds when you pick any game this weekend. Same game parlay insurance. Protect your first same game parlay up to a minimum of 3 legs. NFL playoffs, but you got to use the promo code HENNIG when you sign up on FanDuel Sportsbook. So, I told you already, I like the under in the first half for the Ravens and the Bills. I like the over 296 for Josh Allen on passing yards. I also like the Chiefs to cover the spread. And I just threw this on myself with FanDuel. So if you go in the alternate lines, Chiefs pick 'em on the alternate line. Packers -3. You go Chiefs pretty much any number you want. And either Bucks or Saints pick 'em, you get some pretty sweet odds on that 4-way parlay. Again, Parlay Insurance, FanDuel Sportsbook. Also, I parlayed Condit versus Brown. It's going to be a slugfest. These UFC fights have already been wild today on ABC. Condit versus Brown will not go the distance. I parlayed that with Max Holloway versus Kelvin Kattar to go the distance. Some great fights, UFC this afternoon. I'm Josh Hennick. I'll catch you Monday.